But in Utah, it's only 12:30, so I'm perfectly awake at the moment, but I'm worried about all of you at 2:30 in the afternoon if you're from the Eastern time zone. Anyway, welcome. This is a presentation, works as a sort of a precursor to the following presentation that Gene Koo is going to make on the use of media notes in skills instruction. I'm going to deal with some larger issues that we've been struggling with at our law school for a while, since we really got serious about teaching skills. And by we, I mean I and one other professor. There are a few other people. Our legal writing folks are certainly serious about it, and our advocacy folks that teach legal research. But most of our other faculty see this as an enterprise that is both beyond their experience and something that would be challenging for them to engage in. So we've been experimenting with ways to improve the process of teaching skills, do it. The dean isn't sure that it's more cost-effective at this point, but I think I've convinced them that it is. And so we're going to try and deal with how to teach skills to more students more effectively, less expensively, while spending more money. That's because of the value of the instruction, so it's worth more. Let's start off. Let me to introduce this topic. This is our interviewing and counseling course. These are the locations, the current locations of the instructors in the course. And we can increase, the way this course is designed, is we can increase instructors as we allow more students into the class. So the number of instructors available to the course depends on the number of students who've registered for the course. And that's because we pair adjunct instructors with students on a 1-to-4 ratio as they come into the class. We'll add an adjunct to work with each set of 4 students. For next year, normally we teach this to 60 in sections of 16, and we're increasing it to 24 next year, and then we're going to start exploring how far we can scale this. The course as it's taught now is a high-demand course, and that's why the dean is willing to go along with it. We have online registration, and the course fills up in the first 16 seconds, according to our registrar. It's a pass-fail course, and it's taught and actually in a way that the students in their evaluations at the end of the term say this was more work than any graded course I took this year. But generally they are willing to tolerate that and to take a pass-fail course. It is a lot of work for them. And I think it goes in part to the methods we're using, and also in part to their sense that they're actually getting something out of it in terms of skills learning. So, and this is not so much to talk about the pedagogy, but to sort of give you a very quick overview of the pedagogy, and then to explain how we've used technology to try and accomplish those goals. So, now we've used this in a negotiation course. Am I doing something wrong? Is that me squeaking? Oh, okay. We've used it in a negotiations course and in this interviewing and counseling course, and so I don't know yet how portable it is outside of these 2 skill sets. Here's the issue. In interviewing and counseling, I had occasion in the 1990s for 8 years to observe lawyers interviewing and counseling clients 6 times a week for 28 weeks out of the year. These are practitioners coming in and meeting with clients. over 8 years. So it was a lot of observations. Out of that experience, I decided I was going to change the way I taught my class, that we needed to do more to give them actual skills that they could carry away from the class and remember years later when they met with their clients. And in part because I observed several of my better students during that time, none of whom had actually remembered anything from the class in terms of their performance, so it worried me greatly. What I observed, at least for me as a person observing a skill set that I was teaching, that the lawyers that I was observing were performing at a fairly low level compared to what skills they might have been able to demonstrate in working with their clients. And they sort of came in, and I saw them in various, they'd been in practice for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Then we saw them at, 5 years later, 8 years later, and they seemed to plateau very quickly and to not reach, to develop certain habits of interacting with their clients, and many of which were not indicative of the best that they might, the best skills that they might demonstrate in that setting. And so the question was, why couldn't the curve look more like this? That they're coming in on the y-axis at a much higher point out of law school, rather than they're just some accumulation. Most of these, of course, had never had a course in interviewing and counseling, and then trying to figure out what would it take to move them from where their natural skill set brought them to a higher place on the y-axis, being their initial skill level as they got into practice, and then a curve that would cause them to, based on a reflective practitioner model, that would cause them to reach a higher plateau, at least before they tended to plateau. So that's what the course, that's what this is about. How to, at least my efforts to try and achieve these goals. What I came up with is taking a look at how skills were taught in lots of other domains. So how, if you had training in any of these domains, how did you learn to perform? How did you learn to be proficient in what you were doing? And there has been over the last couple of decades, a group of researchers that study expert performance that have tried to observe how experts came to learn and become experts in performance-related domains. And they label the pedagogy that seemed to be common across all of these as deliberate practice. And basically, you can drop the deliberate, that's a term they put on it and actually they tried to define the characteristics of the type of practice that led to proficiency. And so the word deliberate there is to go beyond what practice is and to define a range of characteristics of the type of practice and learning that proved to be the most efficient in getting people to, from this place you saw on the original chart, your initial pre-existing skill set, to somewhere else higher on the y-axis. Okay, very quickly, the pedagogy, and then I want to spend most of our time on the technology that's addressed the problems associated with this pedagogy. If you take, if you've had piano, you're often assigned practice tasks. You have to figure out a skill that you need to develop. It comes out of a larger skill set, which is your proficiency at reading music, at manipulating the keyboard, at doing all of those things. But you often have very precisely defined tasks and skills that you're going to learn, and then they have to come at an appropriate level of difficulty, and you prepare to practice, and then you practice the task. It's a very simple model. You're all familiar with it. What they found, though, is that if the practice tasks promote the student to concentrate, to focus, to force themselves to do things that aren't necessarily inherently enjoyable, and they're organized, they're systematic, then you began to see real gains in efficiency in learning the skill set. The third part was that they needed feedback, they needed to be reflective, they needed to understand whether the practice was actually representative of a skill that they're trying to learn, and then to repeat that, understand what was wrong, and then to repeat the task over and over again until you began to synaptically wire yourself to perform the task. That's the model. And what as I saw it, the challenge for me was in the law school setting where we only have the culture of legal education would only allow us so much time to spend with students to learn interviewing and counseling. How could I bring this model into the classroom in one semester in a 3-hour class that would provide sufficient practice that the students would retain and actually hardwire in a skill that they could draw upon at some later time when they actually met a client 2, 3, 4 years later, perhaps in some cases. And so the way these are the challenges I faced. I had to figure out, first of all, how do you break interviewing and counseling down into the same way that a piano instructor or a tennis instructor or a golf instructor would be into its component skill sets. The 8 years of observation I had in the 90s helped me a lot to do that. I sort of came up with a list of things that were going wrong in the process. And I figured the things that weren't going wrong I didn't need to teach. The things that that were problematic we should focus on. And so that helped me to define and dissect the skill set and come up with the ones and the tasks that I thought should be part of this. Still, it was a very long list, and it had its own challenges. You had to motivate law students to do this sort of thing, to come into a class, spend time, practice, focus on the task, and believe that they are heading in a direction that was going to get them somewhere in the final analysis. And the big challenge was to provide them with enough practice experiences so that what I found is you can, and you obviously in teaching in this area as well, 1 time, 2 times doesn't necessarily mean that they've learned anything. It's just that they've been through a routine twice, and that and if you were to repeat it 2 weeks later, they might ask you what is it we do again here to learn this experience, and to make it cost effective, and then to make sure you provide feedback. What I'm trying to do is implement the whole model. So in the end, what I found was that I needed to rely heavily on technological resources that we could bring to the classroom and to the students, and in various ways supplement the class and to facilitate the instruction. Now, it would be also nice if it were a 5-hour class now, but 3 hours is what we have. And so here's some of the things that we've tried to bring technology into the skill learning task. Here's a model of what's developed. Part of this is still in process. And I'll show you our intermediate solutions. On the left, if you're going to have somebody look at their performance and think about it and reflect on it, for several years we used reflective methods. Those didn't work so well. They didn't help student motivation. The reflections were often shallow, but we couldn't point back to a performance and say, your reflection doesn't show insight into what actually happened when you tried to perform the skill. And so we needed to come up with a way to capture performance. Capturing performance for a lot of students is a challenge, and so ultimately we came up with a distributed method of recording student performance. In other words, they were responsible for recording their own performances, and and a lot of that, for now at least, we've relied on the ubiquitous availability of laptop computers. We happen to standardize on laptop and have a laptop requirement at our law school, so we know what kind of laptops they're coming in with. They all have to have them, or they're responsible for. They can't take this class if they if they don't have a laptop, except in certain exceptions, we provide laptops. But what we're looking for ultimately there is a device that they can sit down in any setting instantly and simply record performance. We then needed some way to analyze the performance, to facilitate the students in the analysis, and then to facilitate experts who we needed to provide feedback to the students. Then finally, with the logistics of all of this, we needed some way to exchange all of this information in a timely fashion and to manage that process so that if you imagine you have 24 students doing 20 exercises and exchanging those files with 6 or 7 instructors, that you have a logistical task or challenge on your hand, and so we've addressed how to do that as well. Anyway, that's the overview. And let me just walk you through each of these pieces. The overall objective here was to increase practice tasks, to have enough practice experience during the semester with enough feedback that we felt like the students were actually making some gains by the end of the semester and could demonstrate those gains in exercises that were closely evaluated. Okay, recording in the classroom. We have a studio, well-equipped, remote cameras, control room, staffed 10 hours a day, but if you work out the logistics of having 400 or 500 hours of recording in that studio, it just doesn't work because that would be just for one class. And so what we went to was, we've gone through various stages here of using web cameras with headsets, web cameras with lapel mics. We've explored network cameras, just feeding directly into the internet, recording at our studio simultaneously. And then this item 6 is the device that we have a 2-year project going to come up with a performance capture device that will help to solve this problem for us. So the first task is, if you're going to get a lot of recording done, you're going to have to do some of it in the classroom. At least that's been my solution. Do it in the classroom. It's changed the configuration of what a class is for me. A class is a place where we meet, we do something, but a lot of the class activities are going to take place virtually. Even though we meet in every class, there's an attendance requirement. You have to be in class 3 hours a week, every week out of the semester, and yet what we do in class doesn't always follow the traditional format. So sometimes a class will simply be all the students pairing up and working for the whole hour practicing interviewing and counseling skills. Now the way they do that, early in the semester we'll have a one hour training session on the technology, and then we will and from that point on from the semester they're expected to be able to manage all of the technology required to record their exercises and to make them available to experts, do their own analyses, then make those analyses available for feedback by our virtual faculty. So we have a large classroom. We can do up to, I think, 30 students simultaneously and 15 pairs in the room. That's why the lapel mics with the noise canceling are important, because there's a regular din of noise in the room when they're all simultaneously recording their exercises. Now you can see here that it gets complicated. Look at the cables. It gets complicated when you're trying to screen out the noise, make sure you have good crisp audio like it's done in a studio, and you're simultaneously recording both parties, and you want them to appear side by side in a split screen format so that when you can look at them. We've accomplished all of that just using their laptops except the split screen format. And what we're hoping to do with the media capture devices is allow the split screen format and even a simpler method than this. It really does take a full class period to teach students to plug all of this stuff. These audio cables come in and they go into some Y connectors, which simultaneously plugs them into both laptops, so that the students are getting audio from each other while all of these practice exercises are going on in the classroom. Now, that is a manageable task, but it is a task that requires some technological, some experience and a little bit of technological sophistication to pull off. So that's one of the challenges, getting simultaneous recording of practice exercises in the classroom to maximize the amount of practice time available to students during the semester. Basically, we will meet in one class, which will prepare them for the next class, which is it will be an hour-long series of practice exercises. And then they will get feedback, we'll get into that in a minute, they'll evaluate their own performance, get feedback from their virtual reviewers, and then be prepared for the next exercise, which may be a repetition of the previous one, or a variant which repeats some elements of the previous exercise and builds on the previous exercise to move toward a target set of skills that we want to cover during the semester. To do this, we've purchased some video web cameras. We happen to use Logitech Orbit autofocus cameras. We're just upgrading to the latest version of that because they have excellent software for very simple to use. You plug in the camera. If it weren't for the audio component of all the noise in the room, these would be very simple. Just click record, and it puts a timer up on the screen, starts recording it, automatically saves the file, compresses the file, puts it in a standard video. It's a WMV format in our case that's immediately accessible to in any of the media players. Well, and certainly in the Windows media player. So we deliver these to the classroom. Actually, we have a closet in this classroom, but we're keeping these now. We just unlock the closet. The students go and get their equipment and set up at the beginning of class. And then they return the equipment to the closet at the end of the class. These are just a few of the problems with recording on student laptops. It can be done. We do it successfully. We've done it for 4 years successfully, but not without its challenges. It takes some startup time. Their students are always dropping their laptops, putting something on there that wipes out the drivers. Things go wrong. And so you do have to have some knowledge of how to quickly solve a problem when their laptop doesn't work if you're going to do it in class. If it's out of class, it's a lot easier. They can check out, as an alternative, they can check out these web cameras, go to a study room, record the exercise. They don't have any of the audio problems, and then just return the web cameras outside of class. The downside of that is a tremendous logistical challenge of them finding time to meet together and get all of that done. So we'll only do a fourth of our exercises are out of class, 3/4 are in class during the semester. The video capture device that we're working on is a touch screen. They just come in, they have up to 4 cameras. They just pull out the camera, set it up, hook on the lapel mic, and then they indicate how many cameras they're using, and then it will split the screen appropriately and begin recording and saving the recording. Now, in the case of 4-party negotiation, for example, we're trying to get the device to handle up to 4 simultaneous video recordings, and then to ideally to record the audio on 4 separate tracks so that we can manipulate it later to segment the audio as to who's speaking at various moments in the process. Anyway, that's the performance capture problem. Remember, the overall task is to replicate the methods of deliberate practice used in other disciplines, which means maximize the amount of practice time that the students can engage in, and make sure that they're learning something from that practice time and they're properly motivated. One of the things we found is that simply recording the exercises changes the motivation of the students entirely, because they're going to submit those recordings and they're going to be reviewed. And so before we started recording exercises, we had a lot of practice but not much serious attention to the practice. And so the recording really focused the students and brought them into the task in a way that made it quite dramatically more effective, I think. Okay, next one, the video evaluation. Actually, Gene is going to cover this in the next session, but just very briefly, the task of evaluating videos is you're familiar, video is a very awkward media to work with, or audio, because it's out there somewhere, but you have to find it. It's not indexed. And so what we concluded we needed was a tool that would allow us to quickly index videos so that students could annotate, comment on their own performance. We could then quickly access any observations they made, observe the same things that they observed, and then give them feedback on their performances on the students' evaluation. We have this tool, Media Notes, which we've been using for about 3 years now, and it's been evolving through various iterations, that manages that task. Actually, I'll just leave this for the next session. The next challenge that we face is in simply managing a course like this. How do you manage a course in which the task is to have 450 clients available during the semester? I'm talking about each iteration of the exercise across each student, and then to record each encounter with each client, and then get an evaluation of that by the student that serves in the lawyer role in the lawyer-client dialogue, make those available to reviewers who are going to give them feedback, get the feedback, and have it in a form that makes it readily available for the students to learn from their feedback. Well, what we've worked on, and there's still ways to go with this, we have a web utility. It's a SharePoint, in a SharePoint portal. It's a Microsoft utility a portal that runs on Windows servers, and works with a SQL database. And basically what it does is, and I'll show you this. It allows, this is last semester's class with 16 students. It allows us to structure the course so that each student has a library within the course, or what we call a document library. It's the equivalent of a folder on a hard drive in many respects. And then associated with each student will be a place where they keep their recordings. So this is Sarah Campbell's work from last semester, and we simply do some things to keep it organized. For example, they have to name their work in such a way that it chronologically orders it as they post it. SharePoint is a very simple utility for uploading and downloading and making files accessible. It can take files up to terabyte in size. I mean, we've had students posting 500 megabyte, up to a gigabyte in size, basically. We've had students posting 500 megabyte files for a very long exercise they've done. Most of the files, the video files here, are in the 50 to 60 megabyte range, some of them 150 megabytes. So what we've had to come up with is a utility that would take large files, make it easy to upload, download, and distribute these files. And the students all have access to the site. They don't have access to each other's folders, but they do have access to their own, and they also have access to, let me show you. Seems to be, oh, there it goes. It was just loading in. And now it seems to have faded away. There it goes. This is a client file. Each student coming into the class takes on a persona. Now, we have a library of these personas. These are people with legal problems, and it's a fairly extensive file that describes the legal problem the person has, gives a legal memorandum that describes the applicable law associated with the legal problem, and a counseling memo that raises counseling issues that need to be addressed for someone counseling this person. And so each student becomes basically a standardized client, and they retain that client role throughout the semester. So as we pair students to work with each other, all they do is come to the SharePoint site. They've been assigned to, William has been assigned to work with Natalie. Natalie will go to his client file, find out the information she needs to work in the exercise. William will go to Natalie's client file, get the information. So we have a place where they can go and prepare themselves to do the exercise. Then they come into the classroom. The exercises themselves are also posted on this site. So they can come to and pick up any one of the exercises. This semester we had 17 exercises that they come in, pick up the instructions. Here's one for a T-funnel practice. The exercises tend to be fairly extensive. This one is gives them a graphic that describes what they're to accomplish, how they set up, how they record, and then what issues they need to attend to, these tag sets. Each one describes a skill that they will need to demonstrate during the exercise. And so they have a fairly extensive set of instructions. It requires, each exercise consequently requires about an hour, including readings, about 2 hours of preparation. They'll come into class, spend an hour on the exercise, then they'll spend an hour and a half evaluating the exercise, hour to hour and a half, and then they'll get feedback and spend another 15 minutes reviewing the feedback on the exercise. So an exercise, these 17 exercises will consume about 3 hours to maybe 4 hours for the capstone exercises during the semester. So the website, the function of the website in all of this is to provide the collective resources that the class can draw upon to set up its personas, to understand what's required of each exercise. So the logistics of that, of course, requires a fairly extensive assignment sheet that lays out each day during the semester what they're going to be doing, which exercise they're going to be working on, and then what the assignment sheet is that they need to get to prepare for that exercise. So let me go back and summarize them. The task is to lay out a sequence of skills to make sure we have clients available for each of those practice sessions by pairing them up and making each one a standard client for every exercise during the semester. Pretty much solves that problem. Then to to provide the means by which they can capture their performance when they come in to try out the skill. And the next step then is to figure out how do we provide feedback to all these students. And this is where this map came into play. What happens, the student records the exercise. I'm going to walk you through the process now. Records it on their laptop. She then posts the exercise on the server, which is the SharePoint site that you saw in her area, which is password protected. Only the assigned faculty and the student that owns that area can get to it. Does an analysis of the exercise using media notes in our case, which is a tool designed to facilitate that analysis. Posts the analysis on the server. Both of those are picked up by the instructor, who then reviews the student's work, provides feedback, which then is reposted on the site, and the students are automatically notified when the feedback is posted. The reviewers are notified when the students post their work. The students are notified when the reviewers post, reviews the feedback, certifies the feedback's been reviewed, and reposts. So while it seems there's a 9-step process for each exercise, some good things about it. One is it's the same 9-step process with each exercise, and that it's an intuitive process. The students, they go through it one time, we walk them through the first one, never have to tell them what to do again during the semester. They've been through the process once. They now know the routine, the drill, as they go through the semester. The experts are former students who've taken the class, have performed well, and in fact, one of the things that really helps with student motivation is when they come into the class, I make them an offer that if they do well in the class, work hard, they will be considered for adjunct faculty positions at the law school upon graduation. Now, you can't make that offer to me. We'll put them in the pool, and a lot of students really see that as something that they would like to shoot for. And so we'll get out of every class 4 or 5 students who are working as hard as they can, performing while trying to learn the skills, and then we do put them in the pool and hire some of them as adjunct reviewers and keep the others in the pool if we expand the reviewer set. SharePoint then is used to notify these people that we employ each year. Next year we're employing 6 reviewers. They handle 24 students each semester. So we have year-long contracts with the reviewers, and they know the technology because they've been through the course. They know the theory because they learned it well. They were able to practice it, and they're now out in practice. They're testing the theory against the practice. And so I get feedback from the reviewers on the exercise saying, this exercise doesn't conform to what I've been encountering. Here's some ideas that you might throw into this exercise to make it more realistic. And so what we've done is to scale the method is to hire adjunct faculty to handle the most logistically demanding part of it, which is tracking what students do and giving them feedback on their performance. What we've discovered from doing this is that it's absolutely essential to the learning experience because the students get it all wrong. Without feedback, you try and explain a method, you demonstrate it, you put up videos of it, they look at videos, and then they do it in some way that's going to not work out for them in the long run. The reviewers can catch that, give them feedback, and sort of mentor them through the class as they move through these skill sets by the end of the class. The fact that the performance is captured on video, analyzed digitally, and posted digitally, on our SharePoint site, makes it the reviewer's physical location irrelevant. They can be anywhere in the country, as you can see in this case. Either the reviewers will have this fall or located in these places, except for the San Antonio one, I think, is moving. But again, the San Antonio person can tap in from anywhere on this. And so this makes it scalable, because all we have to do is add a reviewer, and reviewers could handle more exercises, not more exercises, they could handle more students if we had fewer exercises. They could handle more students if we had shorter exercises. This is just a balance that we found, is that for what we're trying to do in the exercises and the length of each exercise, each reviewer can handle about 4 per week, because they spend about an hour, half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half on the capstone exercises, actually providing feedback to the students. It certainly helps me to avoid burnout. This last semester, I did not have to review. I did review 4 exercises because we had a reviewer that was taking a bar exam. No, what was he doing? He was doing something, I can't remember now. We had another one that was ill. This next semester we have a reviewer that's going to have a baby mid-semester, so we've hired 2 reviewers. One, she'll cover the first half of the semester, another one will cover the second half of the semester. But I didn't have to review. We had 450 reviews of student work, 450 hours, or not quite that many. It's probably in the order of 250, 275 hours of work. And the students never had better student ratings, and most of it was due to the quality of the reviewers. They felt good about the reviewers when they wrote about it. This is really nice to see what practitioners think of my skill set, and they just develop a mentoring relationship with these folks, and so the reviewers enjoy it because it is a coaching kind of experience. We'll have them work with the same students through half the semester, then we'll switch to give the students the feedback from a different reviewer, and then they'll work with another set during the second half of the semester. But they develop more of a relationship with these students than we anticipated when we first did this. And over time, they get to be more efficient and to recognize things that students need to learn as they go through the semester. Let me go back to where is that slide? Right there. Anyway, that's the effort. That's what we've been about, is trying to increase. Let me give you some summary observations on it. One is based on student feedback, the dean has steadily increased funding for this. At first, when I met with him the other day, he said, when you first proposed this, I just rolled my eyes back and thought, this is crazy. Law school is about education on the cheap. What are we doing providing individual mentors for students? But then they began this, and it was going to be pass-fail, and all of these things seemed like the investment was going to be a waste of money. As they've tracked this, they're now increasing the amount of funds available for these external, for our former students who are adjunct faculty now, because the students report such things as, I learned more skills in this course than all my other skills courses combined, in the sense that I really feel like I could go out and implement these skills in practice. They will recommend the course. They will They will involve themselves in it and spend time on this course that isn't graded more than many that are. And the other thing that gives us a sense of it is we've done some research on this to see if we kept track of, because we're recording these, we have videos going back to 1999 of student performance on capstone exercises, and we can compare their performance under various scenarios here. And as we've increased the feedback by the use of the external reviewers, we've developed the technology so the students can do better self-evaluations, and we've increased the number of exercises over time. The student performance, as we measure a given skill, by the end of the semester ratchets up across these innovations. So we think this is not pure deliberate practice, because if it were pure deliberate practice, you would practice the same skill over and over until you've hardwired it until it no longer goes through your cortex. It stops at a lower level in the brain. We can't provide that much practice. What we're targeting at least is as much as we can, so that it isn't a concept that fades with time, but it is something that has some emotional content because they tried it out and they got feedback. So at least I'm pleased with where it's heading at this point in terms of actual learning on this part of the students. Question?
Are you capturing both the client and the lawyer side of this?
We do capture the audio from the client. We don't capture the video right now. That's the problem. And that's why we're working on this capture device, so that we can pair them side by side.
So does the client then get reviewed also?
The client gets reviewed as part of the grade in the class, in the sense that it's a pass-fail. You have pass, low pass, fail. The way to get to low pass is to be an ineffective client. And so we put some motivation in the clients to perform effectively. We're going to do more next year, actually, in training clients at the beginning of the semester. I and a colleague that I co-taught this class with, we served as clients in a special seminar that we taught last semester, kind of an advanced course. And then we're going to play those client roles for the students. I'm going to play them at the beginning of the semester and show them what real clients should be like. Because we were very, we committed ourselves to the role and did a little better than the students sometimes do. Anyway, that's the process. Any other questions on the method?
It looked like you had two cameras in there. That's why I'm confused.
Well, yes, we do, and in part that goes to the reliability of the technology we're using right now. Each student records their own video, the video of themselves in the exercise, and then they both upload to their respective SharePoint sites. So they will have their performance as a lawyer and their performance as a client. We don't look at their client performance unless the other person says, I would have done a lot better on this exercise if my client hadn't sandbagged me. Okay, then we'll look at that. The other reason we'll look at it is the other person recorded, they didn't get any audio, and so we then use the client, which has both the audio for both and the video as the recording. So we only, last semester, we only had one recording that failed us during the semester out of all of them that we did, yes.
Larry, assume that a law school currently has no capacity to host videos on its own server,
yes,
which would be true, I think, of many law schools. Roughly what kind of investment in terms of buying a piece of equipment and then having the staff to support it would be involved to have a SharePoint server like you do? Because it sounds like that's, at the moment, an essential element of your method.
It is an important element.
Well, if there's a way
you could
to
do
allow
something
it.
like disk keys, and the logistics of that, though, are overwhelming. CALI is working on, and I don't know how far they've progressed, but on a service for managing videos that are uploaded. Is that true, Gene?
I'll be addressing that in the next session. And right now, we're largely recommending the USB keys because I don't think most people are going to be taking on something quite as complicated as what you are.
Yeah.
But to get started with SneakerNet.
But Blackboard is close to being able to support something like this. They're not quite there yet. I'm going to Ottawa next week to work with the University of Ottawa and Algonquin College, and they're going to try and implement these methods. We're going to provide our SharePoint server to them next year to handle that part of it. We've got plenty of capacity to support a few other classes, so that won't be a problem.
Well, at any event, what does it cost?
The SharePoint is not that expensive. It's $1,800, I think, academic pricing.
That's for the software?
That's the software.
And the hardware?
No hardware required. Well, you got to have a server, a Windows server, and you do need a SQL database to connect the SharePoint into. And I think Microsoft probably requires their SQL, so that's another couple $1,000 probably. SharePoint is, there's a new SharePoint 2007, which we're putting in this summer, which actually greatly improves over what we've been dealing with in the past. Yes?
I have a question that also arose in conversation with Paul from similar processes you've got with harnessing all of these alumni. That's great after the first year, but I'm curious how you get started. If you don't have people who graduated from this project, how do you get started with having this distributed help if you don't have graduates?
The people in Ottawa, as we've been talking about it, they have some fourth-year students that they're going to train this next year, and they're going to get by with less feedback for the first year, but they're going to train certain students. They're going to target them to become their external reviewers immediately thereafter. So, and that's basically how we got started. We ran it for a couple of years without much feedback, as much as I could provide and a couple of TAs. And then we just picked out our best students and sort of built toward this cadre of folks we can now call upon to give really excellent reviews. They tend to stick with it. I've only had one reviewer drop out over the last 4 years because it's not demanding. It isn't as demanding as trying to do 25 reviews a week for 14 weeks. It's something that they can do on their and they feel like it's keeping them connected to the theory and improving their own skills. And so, it's teaching and it's things that they're doing that they're satisfying. So the reviewers tend to be very much engaged and remain engaged in the process. Paul, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's kind of comments and questions. I think it's a great system. We kind of developed something like that in GSL, but we found that when we were videotaping the students, it was a bit flaky there because we were recording direct to the computer, and sometimes for one reason or other, the computer would hang or whatever, and the recording would be lost. And that was a problem for us.
What was? I'm sorry, I missed.
Sorry, the recording of the video stream onto in digital form, as it were. We were using computers rather than dedicated recording devices. So sometimes, it's something as simple as maybe an automatic download of software or something like that would immediately cause the video stream to crash, and we wouldn't know about it until we checked it and the damn stuff wasn't there. So it was that we still to solve that particular issue there.
We have found a solution for that.
Right.
Yeah. I have the chair of the technology committee at the law school, so I have some influence on what happens as we replace equipment. So we're taking old laptops that the faculty have been using, we store them in our media center, we have them all set up to record, and we have them wheeled into the room. So we have 2 to 4 extra laptops in the room, and if a student has trouble, they just go over and grab one off there and do the exercise, upload the video, and put the laptop back.
Very interesting, though. I mean, I think Media Notes is a great piece of software, and I think it's just the sort of thing that we require for students and also for faculty. I mean, I think that's absolutely first rate. We don't use we do use students as student on student. We give them very, very preliminary training. We find that when we come to use standardized clients, that we use lay people. And that gives a kind of sniff of the real as far as the students are concerned.
I agree. That would be nice.
But certainly I think that if we were to take our system forward, I think Media Notes is a brilliant piece of software to move any of this forward. much more into that reflective practice that you were talking about.
One of the things we found, the students, since they use the same fact pattern over the whole semester, the first few exercises are very simple. That introduces them to their scenario. And so they don't have to be as effective there. As the semester goes on, they really get into the roles more. Because they've been living this thing and explaining it over and over to different lawyers. And so while there are some downsides to using students, on balance, I think it's a very efficient method for getting clients, at least for us. Because they get to pick out the scenario that we have a library, and they go and find one you like. Find one that you would like to be for the semester. But you've got to get into the role, and you have to be realistic, and we're going to show you what it means to be realistic with your clients. And then you get graded on it as well. Yes?
With the graders, I realize it's pass-fail, but what calibration training do you give them, if at all, so that you're getting standardized feedback?
In the past, we haven't. Next year, we've got a scheme, and I think I'm going to like it. Each reviewer reviews 4 students a week, as they do their exercises. Next year, we're going to have them rank them 1 through 4. This person did the best on this, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then but they'll be and then the next week, if they consistently get ranked 3rd or 4th, then I need to talk to them, and we'll look more closely at what's going on. And so it'll motivate the students to stay away from that bottom ranking. It isn't an absolute score, and it isn't going to affect their final grade in the course unless they have a stream of 4s. Then they know they're in trouble. They're not doing something that the other students are doing at that point.
Do you do any review of the grading that's being done by the
yes,
reviewer?
Yeah. I'll look at their reviews. They will email me and say, how do you deal with this kind of problem? And then they'll email me and they say, this student doesn't seem to be tending to reading the material or doesn't seem to understand these concepts. So I can individually work with those students. Only takes about one time to come in and say, look, you're in a pass-fail course. You're not getting it. Let's talk about what you're doing. Come on in, we'll practice together until I feel like you're up to speed on this, then you can go forward.
What are you actually using to capture the video on the machine?
We're using Logitech web cameras, and they have a download, some software that is free that you get with these Orbit web cameras. That's just really easy to use, straightforward, does everything we want actually, except for the split screen.
Mac or PC?
Just PC for, well, the Logitechs, I assume they work on the Macs, but I don't. They do have Mac drivers that you can download, and we standardize on PC, so I'm not knowledgeable in the Mac area on that. Okay, any other questions? Thank you. We have, Gene is going to...
in about half an hour, the next set is done. The nuts and bolts actually using meeting notes and a little bit about video recording, not as much, but so that's the same in half an hour.
Gene, have you talked to John about...
I feel a little bigger.
Yeah, I think it's too much. I mean, we don't have a big light. We do not have a big. I can run a bunch of games on my laptop. So obviously, we don't have a big fan. We have a quality. Here, but right now,
FPAF?
now, of course, this
they want to need incredibly high volume. So don't have built for control of the buildings. As we built